Have you ever witnessed nature's most impossible miracle unfold in the face of certain death? When rangers discovered a massive python attacking a mysteriously silent pregnant gorilla, they prepared for the worst possible outcome in wildlife conservation. But what happened next? The unbelievable chain of events that followed their desperate intervention was so extraordinary, so beyond anything ever documented in the animal kingdom, that it challenged everything we thought we knew about life, death, and the miraculous power of maternal instinct.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you.
The Lope National Park sprawls across the heart of Gabon like a living testament to Central Africa's pristine wilderness, where ancient rainforests give way to sprawling savannas that create one of the continent's most diverse ecosystems. This UNESCO World Heritage Site represents a unique convergence zone where forest elephants share territory with savanna species, while lowland gorillas navigate between dense jungle and open grasslands in patterns that have evolved over millions of years. Towering akome trees rise from the forest floor like cathedral spires, their massive canopies creating a complex network of aerial highways where primates swing between worlds of shadow and filtered sunlight. The park's network of rivers and seasonal streams create perfect hunting grounds for aquatic predators, while hidden lagoons provide sanctuary for creatures seeking refuge from the equatorial heat. This isn't your typical wildlife rescue story about rangers responding to routine emergencies or documented animal conflicts. What you're about to witness transcends every assumption about the boundaries between life and death, survival and sacrifice, and the unbelievable power that emerges when maternal instinct faces its ultimate test. It's not about standard conservation protocols or predictable animal behavior. It's about the moment when nature reveals capabilities so extraordinary they challenge our understanding of what's biologically possible. The park's unique geography creates deadly encounters where forest predators venture into territories that should be safe havens, while the delicate balance between different ecosystems produces scenarios that test every survival strategy evolution has developed. Here, in this wilderness where ancient rhythms still govern life and death, encounters between species operate by rules that defy human comprehension. On this particular morning, as mist rose from the warm forest streams and filtered sunlight painted the landscape in shades of emerald and gold, destiny was preparing to showcase an event so unbelievable that it would forever change how we understand the miraculous depths of animal consciousness and the extraordinary lengths to which maternal love will go when faced with the impossible choice between personal survival and protecting the next generation.
Chief Ranger Antoine Mbeki and wildlife specialist Dr. Mario Congo had dedicated their careers to protecting Lope's incredible biodiversity, their combined expertise making them legendary figures among Gabon's conservation community. Antoine, a tall fang man whose gentle demeanor concealed lightning-fast reflexes honed through decades of dangerous wildlife encounters, possessed an intuitive understanding of animal behavior that had prevented numerous tragedies. His weathered hands bore the scars of countless rescues, while his patient dark eyes reflected the deep wisdom that came from reading the subtle signs of the forest's ever-changing moods. Dr. Okongo, whose doctorate in primatology had been earned through groundbreaking research on lowland gorilla reproduction and maternal behavior, brought invaluable scientific knowledge to their partnership. Her ability to interpret gorilla emotional states and predict behavioral patterns had made her essential to the park's most challenging conservation efforts, while her calm presence during medical emergencies had saved lives on multiple occasions. Their morning patrol had been routine until their radio crackled with an emergency report from researchers conducting a long-term study on pregnant gorilla behavior. Deep in the forest's most remote section, they had discovered something that sent chills through every conservationist's heart. One of their study subjects, a heavily pregnant female nearing full term, was under attack by what appeared to be a massive African rock python. The subject of this crisis was Nyota, a magnificent 18-year-old lowland gorilla whose name meant star in Swahili, a fitting designation for a female whose intelligence and gentle nature had made her beloved among researchers. At 8 months pregnant with her first offspring, Nyota represented hope for the species' future and embodied everything that made gorilla conservation so personally meaningful to those who dedicated their lives to protecting these gentle giants. What made this emergency particularly disturbing was the researchers' description of Nyota's behavior during the attack. Instead of the vocalizations and struggling that would be expected from a gorilla under assault, the pregnant female had fallen completely silent, a behavioral anomaly that suggested either severe injury or something far more mysterious that challenged every assumption about maternal response to mortal danger.
The first indication of crisis came through urgent radio transmissions from the research team that shattered the peaceful morning routine of Ranger headquarters. Dr. Lisa Hoffman's voice carried barely controlled panic as she described a scene that challenged every protocol in wildlife emergency response. Nyota is completely motionless. The python has her in full constriction, but she's not fighting back. Something is terribly wrong. Antoine's experienced hands moved with practiced efficiency as he gathered emergency equipment while processing the tactical nightmare they were about to face. Python attacks on pregnant gorillas represented the kind of multi-layered crisis that tested every skill a ranger could possess. Time-critical rescue operations, complicated by the additional vulnerability of unborn offspring and the unpredictable behavioral patterns that pregnancy could trigger in both predator and prey. Dr. Okongo's scientific mind immediately recognized the anomalous aspects of the situation that made this emergency unlike any documented case in primatology literature. Pregnant gorillas facing mortal danger typically displayed heightened defensive responses, their maternal instincts driving them to extraordinary lengths to protect both themselves and their unborn young. Nyota's reported silence suggested either catastrophic injury or behavioral patterns that defied every assumption about maternal response to crisis. Their vehicle struggled through the muddy forest tracks leading to the remote research site, the engine noise seeming unnaturally loud against the ominous quiet that had settled over the area. Through their radio communications with the research team, Antoine and Dr. Okongo learned that the entire forest ecosystem around Nyota's location had fallen silent, an environmental response typically associated with the presence of apex predators engaged in active hunting. The most disturbing aspect of the emergency reports was the description of Nyota's positioning during the attack. Instead of the desperate struggle that should accompany python constriction, the pregnant gorilla appeared to be allowing the attack to proceed without resistance. This behavioral anomaly suggested possibilities that neither ranger wanted to contemplate, scenarios that could transform a rescue mission into a recovery operation, with implications that would haunt the conservation community for years to come.
What Antoine and Dr. Okongo discovered when they reached the research site was a scene that challenged every assumption about predator-prey dynamics and maternal behavior under extreme stress. The massive African rock python wrapped around Nyota was easily 28 feet of pure serpentine muscle, its diamond-patterned scales glistening with forest moisture as it applied methodical pressure to the pregnant gorilla's torso with the efficiency of millions of years of evolutionary perfection. The attack had reached its most critical phase, with the python's coils positioned to apply maximum pressure to Nyota's chest and abdomen, a placement that threatened not only her life but the survival of her unborn offspring. The serpent's massive head remained elevated, its cold yellow eyes monitoring for signs of weakening resistance, while its body performed the calculated constriction that had proven successful in countless previous hunts. But what made this encounter truly disturbing was Nyota's unprecedented response to what should have been a life-and-death struggle. The pregnant gorilla remained completely motionless, her dark eyes open but strangely unfocused, as if she had entered some form of trance state that defied every documented pattern of gorilla behavior under attack. Her breathing was shallow but steady, suggesting she was conscious yet somehow disconnected from the mortal danger that surrounded her.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
Dr. Okongo's scientific training immediately recognized the medical implications of this strange passivity. Pregnant gorillas possessed some of the strongest maternal protective instincts in the animal kingdom, their defensive capabilities enhanced by hormonal changes that should have triggered fierce resistance to any threat. Nyota's silence and stillness suggested either severe neurological trauma or a behavioral state that challenged fundamental understanding of primate psychology. From their concealed observation position, the rangers could see the terrible efficiency of the python's killing technique while simultaneously witnessing something that no researcher had ever documented: a pregnant gorilla apparently surrendering to death without any attempt at self-defense or protection of her unborn young. The mystery of her behavior would soon prove to be the key to understanding what was about to become the most unbelievable wildlife encounter ever recorded.
Antoine and Dr. Okongo's response to witnessing Nyota's crisis revealed the profound internal battle between scientific protocol and emergency intervention that defined conservation work at its most challenging. Their training emphasized careful assessment before action, but watching a beloved research subject and her unborn offspring facing imminent death triggered responses that went far deeper than professional guidelines. Dr. Okongo's medical expertise provided crucial insights as she analyzed Nyota's mysterious behavior through emergency field conditions. Her whispered observations to Antoine carried the controlled urgency of someone processing information that challenged her scientific understanding while simultaneously calculating rescue strategies that might save two lives instead of losing both. The gorilla's strange passivity suggested possibilities that ranged from shock-induced paralysis to something far more complex. The research team that had first discovered the attack huddled at safe distances, their cameras capturing what appeared to be the final moments of one of their most beloved study subjects. Dr. Hoffman's field notes would later reveal her struggle to maintain scientific objectivity while witnessing the apparent surrender of a creature whose personality and intelligence had made her feel more like family than research subject. Antoine's tactical assessment was grim but clear. Approaching a 28-foot python engaged in active constriction meant exposing human personnel to potentially fatal danger while operating in terrain that heavily favored the serpent's advantages. His years of dangerous rescue operations had taught him to calculate odds with brutal honesty, and every measurement suggested this intervention would likely claim human lives without saving gorilla ones. But what disturbed both rangers most was Nyota's continued silence and stillness. Their experience with gorilla emergencies had prepared them for desperate vocalizations, violent struggles, or the kind of maternal fury that made female primates among the most dangerous animals to approach during family crises. The pregnant gorilla's unnatural calm suggested either neurological damage or behavioral patterns that challenged fundamental assumptions about consciousness, pain response, and the survival instinct that should have been driving her to extraordinary defensive efforts.
Antoine and Dr. Okongo's decision to intervene came not from reckless heroism, but from the calculated courage that separated true conservationists from passive observers of nature's tragedies. The rangers began their approach to the python attack with tactical precision developed through years of dangerous wildlife encounters. Their movements coordinated to create maximum disruption while minimizing exposure to the serpent's devastating defensive capabilities. What made their strategy extraordinary was Dr. Okongo's apparent understanding of both python physiology and gorilla pregnancy dynamics, gained through decades of specialized research.
Instead of the direct confrontation that might trigger the snake's most violent responses, they executed a medical assessment approach designed to evaluate both Nyota's condition and the viability of intervention without immediately threatening the predator's sense of control over its prey. But as the rangers positioned themselves for the rescue attempt, something unprecedented began to emerge from their careful observation of Nyota's mysterious behavior. Dr. Ogongo's trained eye detected subtle movements that suggested the pregnant gorilla's stillness wasn't the paralysis of fear or injury. It was the profound concentration of a mother preparing for something that challenged every assumption about maternal response to crisis. The most remarkable discovery came when Dr. Ogongo noticed rhythmic contractions in Nyota's abdominal area that had nothing to do with the python's constriction patterns. Her medical training immediately recognized signs that transformed this rescue from a simple predator-prey intervention into something far more complex and urgent. Nyota wasn't surrendering to death. She was actively engaged in the process of giving birth while under attack by one of Africa's most formidable predators. This revelation changed everything about the tactical situation the rangers faced. They were no longer simply rescuing an adult gorilla from a python attack. They were potentially witnessing the first documented case of a gorilla giving birth while under mortal threat, a scenario that required medical expertise alongside rescue operations and introduced variables that no wildlife emergency protocol had ever anticipated. The stage was set for an intervention that would test every assumption about the boundaries between life and death, survival and sacrifice, and the extraordinary capabilities that maternal instinct could unlock when facing the ultimate test of protecting vulnerable new life.
The rangers' assault on the python became a race against time that tested every skill they had developed during their careers protecting Africa's most endangered species. Antoine approached the massive serpent with movements that spoke to years of experience handling dangerous reptiles, while Dr. Okongo positioned herself to provide medical support for what had become the most complex wildlife emergency either had ever encountered. Their initial strategy relied on disrupting the python's sensory control through coordinated distraction techniques designed to divide the serpent's attention between maintaining its killing grip and defending against these unexpected human threats. Antoine's specialized equipment included snake hooks and restraining devices, but nothing in his arsenal had been designed for confronting a 28-foot predator engaged in active constriction of a pregnant primate. But it was Dr. Okongo's medical intervention that transformed this rescue from standard wildlife emergency response into something approaching battlefield surgery. Her field assessment confirmed that Nyota was indeed in active labor, her body somehow continuing the birthing process despite the python's crushing pressure. The gorilla's silence wasn't surrender. It was the profound concentration of a mother channeling every ounce of strength toward bringing new life into the world. The most extraordinary aspect of their intervention was the way Nyota seemed to recognize and respond to their presence. Despite her critical condition, the pregnant gorilla began subtle movements that appeared designed to assist the rescue effort rather than complicate it. Her positioning shifts seemed calculated to provide Dr. Okongo with better access while simultaneously protecting her unborn offspring from the python's most dangerous pressure points. As Antoine worked to disrupt the snake's grip using leverage techniques that targeted neural control points, Dr. Okongo provided medical support that went far beyond standard field treatment. Her understanding of gorilla anatomy and birthing processes became crucial as she realized they weren't just saving one life, they were potentially delivering a baby while fighting off one of nature's most efficient killers.
the forest erupted in chaos as python, gorilla, and humans converged in a life-and-death struggle that would test whether courage, medical expertise, and maternal determination could overcome the brutal realities of predator-prey dynamics in their most extreme form. The battle reached its impossible crescendo when Dr. Okongo managed to create enough space between the python's coils and Nyota's abdomen to witness something that challenged every law of nature ever documented. As Antoine fought to maintain his disruption of the serpent's neural control, the pregnant gorilla's body completed what should have been biologically impossible, giving birth while under attack by one of Africa's most formidable predators. The moment when little Jingo emerged into the world marked a triumph of maternal determination that defied rational explanation. Nyota's body had somehow continued the birthing process despite crushing pressure that should have made such physiological functions impossible, her silent concentration proving to be the most extraordinary display of maternal focus ever witnessed in wildlife research. But the crisis was far from over. The newborn gorilla's first breaths came in an environment where survival measured in seconds, while the python's fury at being disrupted had intensified to levels that threatened to overwhelm even the ranger's coordinated intervention. Dr. Okongo found herself providing emergency neonatal care, while Antoine fought to prevent the serpent from including both mother and infant in its crushing embrace. What happened next challenged every assumption about animal consciousness and protective instinct. As if triggered by her baby's cries, Nyota's mysterious passivity suddenly transformed into the most ferocious maternal defense ever documented in primatology. The new mother's strength, enhanced by neurochemical changes that accompanied successful birth, allowed her to assist in her own rescue with power that seemed to transcend normal gorilla capabilities. The python, faced with this unexpected alliance between determined humans and a gorillas whose maternal fury had been awakened by successful delivery, found its survival instincts finally recognizing when retreat offered better odds than persistence. The massive serpent's release of its grip came just as Dr. Okongo managed to secure little Jingo in a makeshift carrier designed to protect the newborn from further trauma. As the last coils disappeared into the forest depths, mother and infant gorilla lay exhausted but alive, their survival representing a miracle that would forever change how researchers understood the extraordinary lengths to which maternal instinct would go when protecting new life. The immediate aftermath of little Django's miraculous birth created a scene that challenged every protocol in wildlife medical emergency response and redefined the meaning of conservation success. As Dr. Okongo conducted rapid health assessments of both mother and newborn, she discovered that despite the traumatic circumstances of his arrival, the infant gorilla showed no signs of injury from the python attack, a medical impossibility that suggested Nyota's body had somehow created protective barriers during the birthing process. What made this encounter truly unbelievable was the way Nyota's behavior transformed once her baby was safely delivered. The new mother's approach to the rangers who had saved both their lives carried an intensity of recognition that went far beyond simple gratitude, her dark eyes reflecting depths of understanding that challenged fundamental assumptions about gorilla emotional intelligence and memory capacity. The research team's documentation of this extraordinary event would later reveal details that defied biological explanation. Video analysis showed that Nyota had maintained perfect birthing position throughout the python attack, her body apparently prioritizing successful delivery over personal survival in ways that redefined scientific understanding of maternal instinct under extreme stress. Dr. Okongo's medical examination confirmed that both mother and infant were in remarkably good health considering their ordeal, but the psychological impact of their shared trauma had created bonds that transcended normal gorilla family dynamics. Nyota's protective positioning of little Django seemed designed to include the human rescuers within her defensive circle, suggesting recognition that these strangers had become permanent parts of her family's survival story. The most unbelievable aspect of the entire encounter was what happened in the weeks following the rescue. Nyota began displaying behaviors that wildlife researchers had never documented, vocalizations that seemed designed specifically to communicate with humans, positioning that allowed for continued medical monitoring of her infant, and apparent understanding that her survival depended on maintaining relationships with the conservation team. The silent pregnant gorilla's unbelievable story had become a testament to the extraordinary power of maternal love and the miraculous outcomes that could emerge when human compassion intersected with nature's most fundamental drive to protect and nurture new life.
The story of Nyota's miraculous birth and rescue became legendary throughout the global conservation community, fundamentally challenging every assumption about the limits of maternal instinct and the extraordinary capabilities that emerge when life and death intersect in their most extreme forms. Medical researchers worldwide studied Dr. Okongo's documentation, struggling to explain how successful birth could occur under conditions that should have made such physiological processes impossible. The most profound impact wasn't on academic research, but on conservation philosophy itself. The incident proved that the drive to protect and nurture new life could transcend every physical limitation that evolution had established, suggesting reserves of strength and determination that existed far beyond the boundaries of normal biological function. Nyota's ability to prioritize her infant's survival over her own safety redefined understanding of consciousness and choice in extreme circumstances. Wildlife rehabilitation centers began incorporating new protocols based on the Lope model, recognizing that maternal animals possessed capabilities that exceeded every previous assumption about stress response and survival adaptation. The silent gorilla's extraordinary focus during the most dangerous moments of her life demonstrated that intelligence, determination, and love could overcome obstacles that should have been insurmountable. Most unbelievably, little Django grew into a strong young gorilla whose birth story became a symbol of hope for conservation efforts worldwide. His early survival against impossible odds inspired new approaches to wildlife protection that emphasized the emotional and psychological needs of animals rather than merely their physical requirements. The relationship between Nyota's family and the ranger team continued to evolve in ways that challenged traditional boundaries between human observer and animal subject. Their ongoing interactions provided evidence that gratitude, recognition, and family bonds could transcend species barriers when forged in moments of ultimate crisis. In the heart of Lope, where impossible miracles had become reality, their legacy reminds us that the power to create and protect life exists at levels we're only beginning to understand. Nyota's unbelievable story proves that when maternal love meets insurmountable obstacles, the impossible becomes inevitable, revealing the miraculous depths of determination that connect all conscious beings in the sacred act of bringing new life into the world. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.